Anthony Crawford worries he could lose his job. He teaches creative writing at Millwood High in Oklahoma City, where a new state law is set to ban certain teachings of race, bias, and history.
Racism is when you can take all these entities that make up a society and only can be controlled by one ethnic group, right?
The law targets critical race theory, a decades-old academic study of the legacy of racism and inequality. But a growing chorus of Republicans use the phrase to describe diversity training and historical teachings they see as divisive. The law bans teaching concepts that lead students to feel guilt or discomfort due to their identity.
I said, oh, okay, I didn't know what that was. And then now, here we are back in May, now they talking about a law. I'm like, oh, that was quick.
Representative Kevin West was one of the authors of Oklahoma's bill.
No teacher shall require or make part of a course the following concepts. An individual, by virtue of his or her race or sex, bears responsibility for actions committed in the past by other members of the same race or sex.
I've certainly never heard a teacher say those things.
We can agree or we can disagree on how far this is happening in Oklahoma.
Over the last few months, lawmakers in more than a dozen states have advanced measures to ban the teaching of critical race theory. Just 1 year after the murder of George Floyd sparked mass protests and a reckoning over diversity and inclusion in many American schools. Kimberly Crenshaw, one of the original founders of critical race theory, thinks this is only the beginning.
I've been trying to tell people for at least 6 months that the effort to respond to the reckoning of last summer was going to metastasize into a backlash. I thought, okay, so they found their boogeyman.
As these bills pass around the country, what do you think will happen?
Before we know it, students of color, as well as white students, are going to have an education that is less robust than we have even right now.
Is this law going to change teacher behavior?
It has to. Because now, if a teacher don't want to lose their job, they're like, okay, well, I don't want to go there. I don't want to talk about this, knowing that it could be possibly a lawsuit or possibly a way for me to lose my job. So I know a lot of teachers is going to move a lot differently.
Crawford encourages students in his classroom to debate race and history intensely.
Can y'all imagine a class where they don't talk about racism?
How are you going to teach American history without speaking about racism? Because you cannot talk about American history without speaking about racism. You cannot do it.
Their whole thing was we shouldn't teach this in class because, one, it makes other certain ethnicities feel bad.
That sucks. I'm sorry, that sucks.
I felt bad, but I can't feel bad for something that I didn't do. We're our own person. You can't hate someone because of what their parents did.
He says he'll keep talking about America's complicated racial history as he sees fit. Craig, in my conversations with the students that you met right there, they tell me that they're going to keep talking about uncomfortable historical topics about race and racism in America, whether lawmakers in their state approve of it or not. They say that no law could stop them from doing that.
Such a fascinating conversation, Antonia, on so many levels. These new laws, do we know how they might affect the upcoming school year there?
So, Craig, this law is going to go into effect in actually just a couple weeks over the summer. So it's going to be in place for this upcoming school year. Already, we're seeing teachers and administrators in Oklahoma schools have conversations about this, worry about the materials they might introduce or the conversations they've had or may continue to have in their classrooms. And you have to remember, teachers in public schools, they are not highly paid people. So many of them are concerned. You know, they don't want to potentially be sued or have their careers end up on the line. And so, you know, no matter what ends up happening with this law, many of the teachers feel like there's already been a chilling effect on their speech.